Okay, good afternoon. We are here with the Rock and Roll Heretic podcast, and my name is Sikivu Hutchinson from LA. And we are featuring this afternoon the dynamic singer, songwriter, multi-hyphenate guitarist, Crystal Gaynor, who is with us from the East Coast. I'm the author of the novel Rock and Roll Heretics, The Life and Times of Rory Tharp, which dropped. And co-host is the amazing and dynamic Kenya Nelson. And Kenya is the author of Ungrateful, a novel on a Black woman's journey in the music industry. And I don't know, Kenya, if you want to give the audience a little background on that amazing visionary novel.
Yeah, sure. First, here's the novel here. I know it's kind of backwards, but I published this at the beginning of this year, and I actually illustrate the cover as well. I gotta toot my own horn. But the novel is, I'm gonna give like a short brief one here, but it's about a character named Alima Kabedi. Her last name is American Ethiopian, but her name is Alima, and she's a young African American alternative rock singer songwriter and performer, and she breaks barriers in alternative rock, but it costs her soul and her sanity, and in some cases it puts her life at risk. And the overall theme of the book is inspired by Me Too, and is also inspired by other movies like Time's Up and Protect Our Girls and Protect Black Girls, which was also a hashtag that was used during the Mute R. Kelly, the Mute R. Kelly. So that is mostly inspired by that, and also from just my personal experiences, and also being a lover of music and a lover of rock music. I wanted to see a character like her out in the world somewhere, because I didn't see it in mainstream media. So I just figured I might as well just create it if I don't see it. So yeah, and I can send my link up there. Actually, yeah, I can give them their link later, right?
I'm sorry, what'd you say, Kenya?
No, I'm talking about the link to my website.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, let's supply that at the end for the promos. But I think that it's a really timely and germane theme with regard to the underrepresentation and marginalization of Black women in the music industry. I mean, certainly as power brokers, having control over their careers, having control over their publishing, having control over their masters. I mean, it just seems like these issues are writ large, ad nauseum, ad infinitum across the decades, particularly if we're looking at Black women pioneers like Bessie Smith, like Ma Rainey, like Rosetta Tharpe. There's always this theme of exploitation and capitalist consumption and colonial control over Black women's artistry. So with that, I want to introduce our guest. I'm really pleased to be speaking this afternoon with Crystal Gaynor, who again is coming to us from beautiful Newark. Yeah. And I'm just going to read a little bit of Crystal's amazing bio. She is a singer, songwriter, and acoustic guitarist, and a self-proclaimed, I love this, a self-proclaimed late in life student of the six strings. It's interesting because I want to hijack that from you, Crystal, because that's how I consider myself as well, a late in life student for multiple reasons in terms of, personal challenges and certainly the stereotypes and the stigmas and the racism and misogyny that we talked about earlier. Crystal has recorded and performed as a background vocalist with George Clinton in Parliament-Funkadelic, and definitely want to delve into that soon. You see, I got a little shout out here with my Funkadelic shirt. She's been on the David Letterman show, and she's also performed with CeCe Peniston and many others. Crystal has also recorded house music with Detroit artists Members of the House, Eddie Flashing Folks, Derek, Mayday, May, and many others. She's performed on stage and in studio with various local rock bands in the Detroit area. She's worked in the music industry behind the scenes for BMG Music, one of the largest music distribution companies in the industry. And she's worked with various artists from all genres of music, including Kenny Rogers, oh wow, Mr. Lady, Whitney Houston, Barry Manilow, and the Wu-Tang Clan, just to name a few. Crystal is also a veteran, correct?
Correct.
Served
Air
in the
Force.
Air Force, toured as a vocalist for the Air Force Entertainment Unit, and again, as a late in life student of the Six Strings, she is a student of Berklee College of Music online program, as well as a member of TAC, Tony's Acoustic Challenge online guitar program. And she is also the founder, I'm really looking forward to hearing about this, of Crystal's Music Box, which has the distinction of being Newark's first acoustic guitar meetup. And then as a final parting salvo in her bio, she says she aspires to spread peace, love, joy, and smiles through music while living #that crystal clear life, one note at a time. I love that, very poetic. So welcome, Crystal.
Well, thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, now, in terms of how we got connected, you were an audience member at our Black Women in Rock Roundtable back in March for Women's History Month, correct?
Correct, yes.
Great. And so during that event, we were talking to some of the visionary Black women guitarists across the nation and connecting them with Gen Z youth. And certainly we want to amplify the importance of bringing Gen Z youth into these narratives of pioneering self-determining Black women guitarists. And you've had a fascinating career. We just unpacked that with your bio, both behind the scenes in music, as well as performing as a singer-musician. What were some of your influences early on, your musical influences?
Well, thank you. That's a really great question. Considering my age, okay, I'm in my 60s. I just turned 65. And being a child of the 50s in this, you had artists like, Diane Washington and I wrote it all down here. Oh yeah. Okay. Oh yeah, Nancy Wilson, Duke Ellington. That was a lot of the music that was played in the house, and every probably Black kid in America has danced to Chubby Checker's "Do the Twist." That's like the first record you really remember. That's the first record I really remember is Chubby Checker's "Do the Twist." And so my influences didn't come so much from the music. It came a lot from maybe vocalists, not so much instrumentalists, but maybe vocalists, and also from the entertainment industry or entertainers, because Sammy Davis was out doing his thing, and believe it or not, Bill Robinson with Shirley Temple. I used to watch Shirley Temple all the time because I loved Bill Robinson. And I even grew up in dance. I ended up taking dance and studying dance, majored in dance in college, and it became just a really big part of my life. So those were some of my influences, but I liked Ray Charles, and I remember the Raylettes, and church music I liked, but like any kid that's 4, 5, 6, 7, you go to church and you're there all day with your grandmother, and it's like the last place you want to be. So I just couldn't appreciate the beauty of the music until much later in life, much later. Yeah.
All right. So I have a question for you, Crystal.
Mm-hmm.
So you describe yourself as a late in life student of the Six Strings guitarist. What inspired you to start playing, and what early messages did you get about Black women playing guitar?
Well, again, I'm going to start with the messages, because coming of the generation that I'm in, Black women played piano. you know, to
Right,
sit
yeah.
with the guitar with your legs open was just totally ungodly, and it just was not going to happen. And I remember wanting to play bass, and I must have been about 9 or 10, and I begged my parents for a bass, and my mother was like, "You'll have calluses on your fingers, and that's just awful. And you do ballet, and that's what you do, and so your identity is laced around the 50s version of what a lady is. Every family had pianos. Everybody had pianos. You'd go visit your aunt, she had a piano. Piano playing was fine. And I studied piano for a little while, but I always wanted to play guitar. So I didn't get into guitar until much, much later in life. I dabbled with it here and there, but I didn't get very serious about, like, I can actually study this, I can actually do this, until much, much later. So, but that had a lot to do with it. It was just the time era that women didn't really play guitars. It was considered a very manly thing. My grandmother, if I would whistle as a child, and my grandmother would, she said, "You stop that mannishness," it was just considered, yeah, because this is a different time era, different generation, and things are very, very different for women now than they were in 1960, 1950, and even in the 70s. I remember, being the little hippie that I was in the 70s, now I'm a ballet dancer, so I've got zero boobs, but I wouldn't wear a bra because that was the era of the bra burning, and my grandmother would just have a fit. You come over with it. It was like, oh my God, nothing was there, but just the fact that she couldn't find something to, like, where's your bra? But that's that time era. So guitar playing during that time, it was just a no-no. And so as I got into my teenage years, I would see white artists with guitars, and then I would see Phoebe Snow and these artists that just dared to be different. Like, I love Phoebe Snow and even Minnie Riperton. They dared to be different. Mother's Finest, Sly Stones, those guys were coming up, and Cynthia was playing the horn, and they dared to be different in an era where R&B Motown was the sound. I grew up in Detroit, and so Motown dictated the sound of the world pretty much for R&B music, and certainly in Detroit. I remember when I first heard, Rare Earth's I Just Want to Celebrate, and Hey Big Brother, and all those songs, I was like, wow, those grooves are like crazy. It's so good. And then Funkadelic, they're coming out with stuff, and it's like, wow, there's another way to do music other than, "Ooh, baby, I love you. I'm so sorry you're leaving me. What's up with my man?" And so that is what attracted me to, I would say, to rock and roll, or to acoustic music. The writing was just different. The conversation was different. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, it was something outside the box. And I just want to say, I'm actually a Detroit native. I'm in Detroit right now. Yeah,
cool.
And the musical influence, it's just been around my life. So you can even hear that sound. Like, when I hear artists throughout all the decades who are from Detroit, I can hear that distinct sound, from Motown artists to like hip hop, like Jay Dilla. So I can hear it in rock. Like, one of my favorite Detroit, Michigan-based rock bands. One of my favorite rock bands is Michigan-based, and it's Iggy Pop and the Stooges. And I can even hear that Michigan, that Detroit influence in that rock. So
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's interesting. Wow. I mean, it's funny going from Motown to Iggy Pop and the Stooges, because Raw Power, that's one of my favorite, one of their seminal albums. And I mean, just look at the way that Iggy Pop influenced punk rock.
Yeah.
And all the other genres of hard, and heavy metal playing. So very interesting.
And I loved the Motown music. Motown used to have what they would call the Motown Review. And it was kind of, I think, underwritten by Charmin toilet paper, because the fee to get in was the wrapper from Charmin toilet paper and $1. And you would get in, and it would be everybody on the Motown family, from little Stevie Wonder, the Supremes. I don't think they were even Diana Ross and the Supremes at that time, the Temptations, the Four Tops, Gladys Knight and the Pips. And so I was watching that, I was intrigued by the styling and the classiness. They just had, they were so well groomed. Gordy had it right when he said, we've got to groom artists before we take them on the road. And having worked in the industry, I could see where that type of training is really, really, really valuable, Yeah. But I did enjoy the Motown music. I even tried out to be a Motown review go-go dancer. I didn't make it. It's too straight up and down, You have the little hullabaloo dancers.
A lot of rigor though, in terms of the choreography, and I mean, certainly the training and all of the prep that went into that. And I'm not remembering the stylist's name, but I just know that there was like a whole architecture of just preparation behind.
I'm sure it was.
And like I said, the choreography. So there
I'm
was
sure it was, because Motown was such a formula. The way the principles of which it was an assembly line, and it was a formula for making hits. So they would have meetings where Gordy would play it, bring everybody in, the janitor, everybody sat in these meetings, and he would play it and he'd say, well, what do you think of this? So it had to be unanimous pretty much before they released it. So so the go-go dancers, everything was under strict scrutiny, but I think I was just too young. Very too young.
So with regard to the industry, and I guess the regime of politics that exists in the industry, what are some of the biggest challenges or obstacles that you've encountered in your career as a Black woman, both as a performer and as an entrepreneur behind the scenes, navigating corporate politics?
Well,
when it comes to racism and sexism in the industry.
Yeah, it's definitely a lot of that. But I honestly believe it's a lot of that in every industry. Now, in the music industry, let's go to the performer side first and foremost, okay? First, we'll go to the performer side. A lot of the men behind the scenes in the studios, they're the engineers, they're the producers, they're the owners of the recording studios, they're the writers, and they have just a little bit too much power. So you come in and you're naive, you're 17, you're 16, you're 19, you're 20. You go in and you're very, very naive as to what is to transpire. And I think back in, even the 70s, 60s, 70s, people were taken advantage of. Women were definitely taken advantage of. Artists were definitely taken advantage of when you go back to Thorpe's days and, just that era, because publishing was new. If you got a quarter to make a record, you were like, oh, wow, I got paid to make a record. That's kind of cool. But it's very different now. And I think because of just how sort of like the box is open, the cap's been taken off and the knowledge is out. So these younger artists today, especially starting from about 1980 to 90s, they started getting a lot smarter. They got really smarter about what royalties are, what percentages are, what signing percentages they should get. People just got more educated. And I think the more educated a young artist is about the business of music, because it is a business. And record companies have to make, they had to make money in order to sign bigger acts, to funnel money in to sign smaller acts. That's really how it kind of works. They would have to sign a Whitney Houston or get a Whitney Houston, build her up, and her revenue helps funnel money down to smaller artists. because it's just the way the business is. And you just overcome it. You overcome it by educating yourself in the business of music. It's not just about, oh, I can sing, or I can play, or I can dance. It's definitely no longer about that. And it really never was. It's just that before, the information was not given to people of color, and it certainly wasn't given to women, So we had to figure it out ourselves. And I think we've done a fantastic job because of people like Berry Gordy, because of the guys from Philly, the Philly Sound. These companies have really opened up the door and opened up the book of knowledge where young people today can just really step in. It's kind of heartbreaking on one side of the scale, because you see a lot of the young artists, they're just kind of willy-nilly. And they're in the industry at one of the best times. You can create your artistry online. You don't even need a label. You come through the 80s, a lot of artists that were being signed, they would take their bonuses and open up a studio in their own homes. So recording studios kind of faded away in the 80s. You don't see the really big recording studios, the RCA studios, they don't exist anymore. The record companies don't exist anymore. The business doesn't exist the way that it did exist when I was in the business. I was in the business, I came into the business like 1980, 81, maybe something like that, 81, 82. And I actually started at a rock and roll station in Detroit called WLLZ. And it was one of the biggest rock stations, right? So I was a receptionist. And from working as a receptionist, I met all the record promoters coming in from Capitol Records, RCA Records, A&M Records, Elektra Records. They were coming in, and the industry was changing where they had to build Black divisions, because Billboard said, we want a Black chart and we want a white chart. Okay, great. Because that created a lot of jobs in the Black division. So I was brought in and I did marketing for the Black division and the pop division. They didn't split my job up. They're like, okay, great. You can do urban. They called it urban. And you can also do pop and whatever falls under that genre, of music. So I got a really great education because of that, but that no longer exists. So it's, but the information exists. We know so much more about how the record industry operates now than ever in history of time. And there's just no excuses. If you want to play rock and roll, you can play rock and roll. Just go and play it. And, labels are looking for artists that have developed a following. Now the following, it used to be, you go back to 80s, 90s, it was who's selling records out of their trunk, especially with the rap industry. I remember when they signed Too Short out in LA. Too Short at that time was selling crazy units out of the trunk of his car. So the groundswell was enormous about him. Same with Wu-Tang Clan. When they signed Wu-Tang Clan, there was such an enormous groundswell. We were getting calls from our retailers going, have you guys heard of Wu-Tang Clan? You need to check this group out. So it's just a different industry. It was a different industry then. It's a very different industry now. The knowledge is there now. It's definitely there for the taking. I just find the conversation interesting because there's no one blocking you out, not now. We could start a whole genre and it could be Black rock and roll, and it could be a real thing. It is a real thing, and it's totally doable. It's not this scary thing that we're being blocked out. It was a thing in the past, without a doubt. They were ripping off white artists. So don't get it twisted. They were ripping off all women. They were ripping off white artists. When I met Barry Manilow, he told me that he's on the road and all of a sudden he's broke and his own accountant's stealing from him. And that's because artists were giving away their own power, and they're not controlling their own books. I don't see Beyonce or Jay-Z ever getting into that predicament because they're just too smart. The artists now are so smart. A lot of the Black artists are college educated, graduated. You know, Diddy started as a gopher, go get us some coffee, go get us this, and he did it. And I think that's why he did that on his little reality show, because that's just some of the crazy grunt work that goes on. You know, you are dealing with people with massive egos, not always with the artists, but with the executives. They have pretty massive egos, you know. So it was a great learning experience. And then I was about the performance side. Like I said, women just weren't in the controlling seats. Women weren't the producers, and now they are. You know, Missy Elliott, big producer. There's other producers. You know, women are taking control of their writing. I was watching a documentary on Joan Armatrading, and Joan, you know, coming through, when she came through, she was totally different, very different, right? But she said when she went out to shop for a deal, everybody wanted her. And they wanted her because of her authenticity, and she knew her craft. She knew her craft. So when they put her with, it was Elton John's producer, who was like, Elton was on fire at the time. He's one of the biggest producers out there. When they teamed her with him, it was a very good experience for her, because he respected her ability and she respected his ability. And that really is what happens a lot when you kind of get to a different level. It's a different level of respectability about your talent and what you bring into the table. When you're kind of down here and everybody's kind of scratching and digging, you're going to come up against a bunch of crap. And it's going to be on both the Black side, the white side, the female side, the male side. It's just going to be ugly because it's crabs in a barrel. You know, it's very competitive. Yeah, it's very competitive, but you bust through, you know, whether it means leaving that and doing something else, or just refining and redefining yourself until what you do stands out, uniquely you.
Right, yeah. I agree about being uniquely you. And you mentioned something about, I'm going back to when you mentioned about the young artists now who are Black artists who are doing rock and roll. There is a sizable community of young Black artists from my age, 35, late millennial, young millennial, Generation Z, that are doing rock, punk, alternative, industrial. I follow so many of them. I've reached out to so many of them, communicating with them, and you just be surprised. And it's just, so it boggles me when I hear a lot of young African-American and just young Black and people of color who still are like, oh wait, Black people do rock. It's like, there is a resurgence of rock and alternative, punk and other electronic. There's a resurgence of it happening again. And I have faith that these young Black people and just us, not just musicians, but just us writers who love the music, artists, illustrators, designers who love that genre and that aesthetic, are resurging and are trying to bring this back and reclaim it. I'm not trying to sound like, I don't want to get too political here, but to reclaim it. And that just leads me to how you create.
Well, it's not even a reclaiming; it's a recreating. You know, we don't have to go back and claim anything as ours. Music is organic, and it is what it is. But we can reestablish it the way we want it to sound and what we want it to do. You know what I mean? It's not that we're taking back anything. We're adding to, you know, we're standing on the shoulders of Chuck Berry, and we're standing on the shoulders of Thorpe, and we're standing on the shoulders of, so we're adding to what they did. They went through a lot to do music back in that day. It was unladylike to play in bars. Church folks weren't having it to play blues, you know, and so the women went through a lot. Yeah. Your book, Sikivu, is very real. The Rock and Roll Heretic, but what women went through in that time era, you know. Yeah. So we're standing on those shoulders. So we're actually adding to. We're not reclaiming back. We're just adding to the mix, and at least that's how I see it.
I like that better. I like that. Yeah, I like that better. Recreating and establishing.
I think that there's validity in both viewpoints in terms of using that trope of reclamation, because certainly if we look at the whole trajectory of the rock industry and the way in which corporate rock is fetishistically associated with white patriarchal mastery and white heteronormative mastery, more to the point, and that is utterly erased and marginalized Black women's self-determination and Black women's creative pioneering of rock idioms, to the point where, fast forward into the 21st century, apropos of your point, Kenya, and you still have millennials and Gen Zs who are just utterly disavowing, if not ignorant, of the origins, you know, of the authenticity of Black rock pioneering. So, and that's certainly that ignorance is certainly being aided and abetted by, you know, the publishing industry, rock critics, R&B critics, just the popular culture narrative of who is equipped to be a guitar player, who's equipped to be a rock artist. I mean, to me, that seems to be what we're battling against, is that whole constellation of the imagery, of the narratives, the propaganda, the publishing industry, ad nauseum, and certainly the historical canon of rock as having been appropriated by white male virtuosos.
Well, you know, I also, you know, when it comes to rock and roll, you got to look at Black radio. You can't leave them out of the conversation. When Joan Armatrading was coming through, even Tracy Chapman, which is a little more current, you know, they weren't, even Fishbone. Well, they did play Fishbone a little, but not a lot.
Very limited.
You know,
I've never heard them. You know, on Black
or it would
radio.
Be like how Black radio has the gospel segment at this time frame on this day, and that's it. When you listen to pop radio or white radio, it's always meshing, especially rock radio. It brings in the old from 1950s, and it plays something from yesterday, you know, or today. And it always mixed those eras of music so that the children growing up, they knew who the Beatles were. Even if they were born in 2005, they know who the Beatles are because radio would support that. Black radio typically never supported that. I mean, I remember, I think Nona Hendrix was on, I'm not sure if she was on A&M Records at a point, but you know, it was hard working those products because radio just wouldn't play it. They're like, we're an R&B station, we're not gonna play it. And because, you know, it's rock, but it's got this really soul edge to it. It just didn't quite fit into the rock and roll Led Zeppelin category. And that's, you know, that's what radio was about. But, you know, I think about that all the time. And I honestly, I think Black radio just didn't support Black rock artists enough. You know, they would support George Clinton, Funkadelic, Parliament, definitely. And they would support Sly Stone because their music has a very soulful edge to it, but just straight up, you know, power chord, Fishbone, those kinds of guys, Living Colors. Yeah. They didn't get a lot of support, you know? So you see artists now like Darius Rucker, and he's made tremendous headways, but you know, he's one out of thousands that got the break. in country music and even in rock music that really got the break. But it was a different time era as well.
Yeah. But that just brings me to my next question, because you mentioned create. My question was, what inspired you to create the Newark acoustic guitar meetup? And who are the participants? And are folks in your group performing original compositions?
Okay. Well, what inspired me to create the Music Box, or Newark's first acoustic meetup, was I was going into New York to an acoustic meetup, and I just absolutely loved it. It was ran by a Brazilian guitarist. Her name is Elena Delage, and it was just so much fun, you know, and it was just different people, different backgrounds, and we're just in there jamming, and she had the system. We're playing rock and roll, we're playing a little bit of everything, right? And I said, I'm gonna do this in Newark. And I got so excited about it. I said, I don't know who's gonna come, you know, I'm just gonna put it out there. And the very first meetup, I think 4 people came. That was it, 4 people. And so I just said, I'm gonna just keep coming every week. We do it down at Military Park. I'm gonna come every week. And I had big books of music, and it was rock music. It was really easy things that intermediate and beginner guitarists could play, you know, open chord type of songs, you know, C, D, G, E, just really simple things. And next week it would be 7 people. And then the next week it would be 12 people. And it just kind of grew organically. And it is a mix of men, women, the youngest, probably, I would say like 18, you know, the oldest, we had a harmonica player stop by. He had to be in his 70s, you know, and it's just this eclectic group of people is very integrated. You know, I thought it was going to be, was my vision at first. I said, I'm going to start the first Black acoustic meetup, because if I like acoustic guitar, there's got to be at least 10 others that like it. And if that's 10, there's got to be 10 more, right? And it just didn't turn out that way. It turned out the way, I let it develop organically the way that it developed. And I have some pictures like on my Instagram page, and you know, I have a young lady, Ashley, she just got her master's degree in marketing, and she's a wonderful guitarist. And then we have another Ashley, he's a gentleman, he's Eastern Indian. And it's just this mishmash of people. And a couple people are Spanish, a couple people are Black. People come in, they come and they go, you know, and yeah. I love it. I love how it's taken on its own energy. And I just try to support that.
Wow, that's amazing.
That's awesome. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's fun.
Really positive and awesome.
So we're gonna have to wrap up. I mean, gosh, this is like been warp speed here, the time. But my last question goes to the next generation in terms of what advice or what inspiring words would you give to young Black women who might be interested in music, interested in playing an instrument, maybe the guitar, but are on the fence, might have been discouraged by all of the imagery that we've been talking about? Yeah. Well, you know, first of all, don't confuse the imagery with your real desire to want to play music. And just know that the music industry is a large industry. If you want to play guitar or you want to play horn, whatever you want to play, drums, do it. Get your parents to get you lessons. The lessons are really, really important. They're going to determine if you want to go further in your education in music. Definitely study theory, regardless of whether it's a little bit of theory. You don't have to be a Chick Corea or master of theory, but you need to understand the language of music. And then seek out other avenues in the industry. We need musicians to write commercials. We need musicians to write jingles. We need musicians for orchestras. You know, we need musicians to play at our local bars. We need musicians to play, to be music teachers.
It's just so much. Everybody wants to be the front person, but somebody's got to run the audio. We need engineers, you know, and we need executives, and we need people to start their own record companies. You don't have to be a musician to start a record company, but you have to have a love for music. So my advice to the young people is to stick with it. You know, you got to do the grunt work. If you're going to play an instrument, you're going to have to run scales. You're going to have to put the time in. And that's really it. It's just, it's simple. The work is never simple. It's difficult sometimes, but it's so rewarding if you really want to play music. It doesn't matter what genre of music that you want to be in. If you want to do classical, study the classical musicians. If you want to do rock, still listen to the classical musicians and study the rock musicians. You know, Picasso said, good artists borrow, but great artists steal. So it's okay if you steal a lick. It's okay if you steal a run. It's okay to take something from another artist and make it your own. You don't have to sound like Aretha Franklin. And I love Aretha Franklin, but we had Aretha Franklin. We need you to sound like you. And that's where listening to other music, playing with other people, just opening up your mind to different musics from around the world, everything. It's just, it all matters. It absolutely matters. So don't get discouraged. It's not the ugly industry that the R. Kellys have managed to create. That's not what the music industry is. It's so much larger than that. And the doors won't close if you are sure of who you are and what you do and how you sound. You have to be sure of that, and only you can control that. No one else can. Yeah.
Very
Good luck. I'll see you at the top.
Very powerfully stated. And I wish that any of the aspiring Gen Z and millennial youth who might see this could tap into you as a mentor.
Please.
I mean, I could just imagine like how empowered and enfranchised folks would be if they had a strong mentor like you.
Well, I would be happy to. You can reach me on Instagram at Crystal's Music Box. And I think I have a Facebook page on Crystal's Music Box, but Instagram is probably the easiest, you know, definitely. Or you can contact me at Crystal Gaynor, Gaynor at AOL.com. I know people go AOL, but it's old, but it's okay.
I get that too.
It works.
Yep. Yeah. We are
I grew up on AOL.
dating ourselves.
I grew up on AOL, so yeah.
Well, this has really been a pleasure, Crystal. Really appreciate it. Kenya, appreciate it. And just to do a little shameless plug, this is Rock and Roll Heretic, The Life and Times of Roy Tharp, just dropped in March. And this is also a great resource. Guitar Girl magazine, which was edited by Gabby, who is from the Texas Lips. I'm probably butchering this pronunciation, but Texas Lips Band, and just dropped. It is 60 pages of women of color and non-binary musicians, primarily guitarists, and so this is available. And of course, Kenya's book, Ungrateful, was just dropped in January, correct?
Yes, it was. And it's right now it's available on Amazon. I just want to quickly say, still going through some processes as far as copyright, as far as getting the ISBN. So it's you know, the pandemic just like changed things. However, that's going. But it's out there, and it's available in paperback and ebook. But I just want to quickly say something. I wanted to say my website is knwriter.com, and I put it in the chat. It's knwriter.com, and I just posted a first short story on there that tells about my main character in the novel. It tells about her childhood, how she came to love rock music and wanted to perform. And Crystal, you mentioned something earlier about how you wanted to play guitar as a child, and your mother mentioned something about calluses. It's so interesting you say that, because in that short story, Alima's father says the same thing to her when she mentioned she want to play Rocky. And he's like, it's a little hard on the fingers. You know how you ladies like to have your nails look pretty. I don't think you want to do that. Because he had his plans in his head of how he wanted to match her future career.
Mhm.
So it's so interesting you mentioned it. I was like, so that really is a thing.
Yeah, there is. Yeah.
It really is a thing.
Yeah.
Because
wow.
you have your ideas of what a lady is. And that,
Yeah.
it's just preposterous, the things that we had to put up with historically as women, because that's what women do. We're
Respect
human.
for politics. Yeah.
Yeah.
We're human.
Yeah. Okay. Well, appreciate both of you and your vision, your energy, your artistry, and look forward to the next session. Also, Crystal, we didn't have an opportunity to show your clip, but I'll be sure to put that up on the Rock and Roll Heritage Facebook page.
All right, thank you. I totally forgot about it. We're just so busy talking.
Yeah, it's a great clip of Crystal doing an acoustic number and singing with a scenic background. I'm not sure where it was shot.
I was in the park, right down the street from my house.
Nice oasis. Okay, great. All right, thanks so much.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Sikivu, for having us. Thank you. Oh, thank you, Kenya. It was so nice to meet you.
Thank you. Nice to meet you too.
Cool.
I'm going to get your book too, definitely. I'm going to order that today.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Crystal. Take care.
Okay.
Thank
All
you.
right. Have a
Bye,
good
ladies.
week.
Bye.
Okay.
Bye.
Oh, we got to take a screenshot.
Thank you. Yeah.
Oh, I forgot. I'm gonna do it.
So look right
Okay,
into your camera and say cheese.
Okay.
Very good.
Okay, I got mine.
Got mine.
Yep, got mine too. All right, thank you.
All right.
Thank you, ladies. Have a
good
great weekend.
You
Bye-bye.
too. Thank you. Bye.
Bye.